Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cooltific podcast. This is episode 4 of season 1, titled Research in Poetry. So, today we're going to be, first of all, discussing general topics for the first 10 minutes, and then we're going to move on to research. And what research means is mainly like researching through books or via the internet, like through Wikipedia or Britannica, like with Encyclopedia or whatever, or through YouTube or whatever. Just kind of going to discuss those kind of things. And then we're going to get into poetry, just generally writing poetry and maybe some of the poems that I have done. And perhaps we'll ask the question, what makes a good poem? And then we will close. So let's begin with general topics. So, first of all, I would like to say that I've been making good progress on the podcast. This is the third one I'm doing today, so I don't have much to do generally, so it's just something to do that's kind of fun. It gives me drive. Just gives me something to focus on every day. When it comes to the scheduling of the podcast, I'm not exactly sure how many podcasts I'm going to do a week. I'm kind of in the honeymoon phase with it right now, and so I've been doing a lot of podcasts for the past 2 days, but I don't know how scheduling is going to work. I might do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I might do 5 days a week, or maybe even every day. I don't really know. I might shoot for every day or 5 days a week, but it kind of just depends on, I don't want to say how motivated I am, because that's kind of, negative language to use, really. But I guess it just more so depends on how willing I am to discipline myself, and how often I can conceive of topics and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm going to figure out the schedule, and then I'm going to post the scheduling like in the description of each video, most likely. I might also open up a social media page on Facebook in order to broadcast, like post broadcasts there, and kind of just promote my podcast in general. I might consult with my father and see if he can work on a website for the podcast. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I don't know if I could independently install an RSS feed onto that website. We'll see what we can do with that. So, making good progress with the podcast. So I'm pretty excited to see what the future will hold for it. How's your guys' day going? Mine is, we're kind of in the mid-afternoon right now for me. Things are doing okay right now. I'm kind of struggling with what I should fill my time with, and I know I've mentioned this throughout multiple podcasts. Me not having things to do during the day, but I would say that generally it's just difficult because I don't know, I just have a lot of time, and it gets to the point where you ask questions like, what can I do to be more productive? What can I do to expand my workload throughout the day, in order to kind of just occupy my time, my time, and feel like you're making progress on things. But I think things are going okay. So I don't know. I think things are going okay, but we'll see where that goes. Anyways, so another general topic we can probably move into is I guess I would say outer space. Why not? Let's bring up outer space. So, what do you guys like about space? I like the planets. Jupiter is a very beautiful planet. Um, the Great Red Spot is definitely a point of interest for the Jupiter. Um, but I don't know. Space is quite interesting. You have pulsars and black holes and galaxies, and I don't know, asteroids. You have radiation, flying through the void at great lengths. I don't know. That seems to be interesting, right? I don't know, but yeah. So space is a thing, but another general topic, and I need to, as you can tell, I need to work on what counts as a general topic because I'm a little all over the place. But another general topic that we can discuss is really just you know developing how do I put it? Like just developing like a journal, or working on a journal, or working on a keeping track of your goals, and just trying to record your achievements, and what has occurred throughout the day that you have experienced, and just kind of things like that. That's something that I'm considering doing because it just kind of gives me a little bit. It provides a little bit of sharper reflection, like concerning, like regarding the day, and it allows me to, like how do I put it? Just maintain like a written record of what has happened, and so I can remember it. I can recall it more easily. Uh, so yeah, that's one thing that might be kind of interesting. Um, Another thing that might be interesting to fill the 25-minute mark, and you can kind of tell this might be a bit of a filler episode, lol. But another thing that that might be kind of interesting for a general topic, I guess, is discussing what we can do to create more interesting general topics. So what I've been doing with the beginning of each podcast is I've been, opening up Notepad and just writing down, what topics we can go over. And I don't know, that's been somewhat effective, I would say. But, maybe what I should do is research like a planner or something. I don't know. Like research like I don't know, like something that I can use to how do I put it? Design the format of the podcast. That might be something that would be good to consider because it gets to a point where like I don't really know what to talk about, especially in the general topics, and I might just move general topics out of the introduction of the podcast and just focus on specific topics the whole time, because it just gives me more space to it gives me more room to work with a specific set of ideas, and it kind of lets my speech flow more fluidly, and that would be something that would be helpful. Another thing that I've considered doing with the podcast is potentially inviting someone on to the podcast. I don't have many people that I know currently that I could invite onto the podcast. Potentially my father, or maybe another family member. I don't know. But there's definitely there's ideas there that I can work from in order to create a more interesting show, I guess. I've considered maybe changing the graphic used on the on the video. I'm using like kind of like this little galaxy template, but maybe I'll use something animated next time, just to maybe keep your eyes entertained if for some reason you're looking at the screen and not just strictly listening to the podcast. So maybe I'll do something like that to make that a little bit more interesting. But generally, I guess I'll just sort through ideas and see which one will eventually work. So let's move on to topic 2, research. So, I've done a lot of research on the internet, for the past like 10 plus years. Since I was a little kid, really, I like to do research. Various things like researching geography or researching, things related to mathematics or like philosophy or science, stuff like that. But one good question I think that should be asked is, you know, how can we trust the information on the internet? And, trust the research that we're trying to accrue in our minds or in our notes. Well, I think one thing that's important to recall is, it's best to, especially in the case of Wikipedia, review the citations and do research on those citations in order to, see, from multiple angles and sources, if the information is accurate. And I'm sure there's websites on the internet that might confirm whether or not like certain sources of information are trustworthy. And of course, kind of begs the question whether or not, the website itself is trustworthy, but I'm sure those things exist on the internet. And of course, it's always good to do your research from multiple angles. Maybe go to the local library or buy a book on Amazon and see, and kind of absorb the information from that from that source, and then compare it to whatever you find on the internet, and then, just thoroughly do research, if that makes sense, and apply a little bit of critical thinking as well to see, what's true and what's not, Anyways, so another fun thing about research is, just going through the different articles, say on Wikipedia or videos on YouTube, and just browsing through, like looking at the images, or just, reading the various paragraphs on, say, a famous figure like say William the Conqueror or something, or researching like a law related to physics. And it's just fun to, at least feel like you're expanding your mind, because occasionally, you'll kind of get the impression that you're somewhat wasting your time, and your brain isn't really absorbing a lot of new information. And it's fun to just go on the internet and research, sometimes just arbitrarily research a topic that you're interested in, and just expand your mind, I guess. Another fun thing about research is, sometimes, honestly, like, there's times where, like, for example, I don't really know what I want to do. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Sometimes I don't really know much about, like, a particular viewpoint, like when it comes to philosophy, for example. Like, I heard people use the term idealism, and it makes me wonder, like, what does that mean? Like, does it mean to be idealistic about something? But really, from my understanding, idealism kind of posits that the mind or consciousness is fundamental to reality before material things, and then of course the inverse of that, I guess, would be materialism. But it's interesting to kind of do a deep dive into those ideas and see, like, like what, how do I put it, like, what is, what's true and what's not, what's, what source of information can give you, like, an idea of what's right or wrong, even, like with ethics and stuff like that. Like when it comes to researching value systems and determining like what you find, what cultures and societies throughout time, found to be proper practice with their ethics and with their beliefs and stuff. And that's another interesting thing to research too, is what different groups of people and societies have believed in, throughout time, and not just like religion, like in terms of religion, but also like in terms of how do I put it, like customs, and how even like little things should be executed, like action wise, like what should I do with like in terms of like small group psychology, like what should I do when someone rebels against the group, or what should I do if a member of the group doesn't believe what we believe, should we, fucking kill him or kill him or her, or try to rehabilitate them, quote unquote, make them believe what we believe, or maybe like accept that they believe something different. It's interesting how like various factors can lead to a society or culture, like deciding to react a certain way to a certain situation, and that's always kind of fun to research on. Another thing that, just to wrap up, that I like doing research on is geography. I really have a good time researching like the various topics about like like the different continents, and researching topics about like like say European history, and like just I like Europe a lot. Like I like researching about like the different countries of like the European Union, and like learning about like different parts of different organizations associated with Europe, like the Crown of the UK, or the Schengen area, or like even like the subdivisions of say Germany or France. I find all that quite interesting, to be honest. But or like during research on like the natural landscape of say Mongolia, and let's get a little random, but Mongolian landscapes are interesting. They're kind of like they're not like steppe. That's right. A lot of the country is filled with steppe, and Mongolia actually has like only 4 million people, while China, which is the neighbor to the south, has like 1.4 billion people, which is just crazy to think that there's such a population difference in those two countries. But yeah, so there's a lot of things you can research online. That's fun, and I don't know. I would say generally just enjoyable. Um, I would say that it's always good to keep up on your research, and always verify whether or not the sources you're researching are true or not. So that will wrap up research. So let's now talk about poetry. So poetry is something I got into, like at least writing poetry. I got into that about a year ago, and I went on this website called allpoetry.com, and with allpoetry.com, basically you can just post whatever poem, whatever you want. Sometimes if it's adult content, it'll be restricted, but you can basically write whatever you want. There's not really many rules, so you don't have to like construct your stanzas a certain way, or use certain language, if that makes sense, or have to use proper punctuation, whatever. You kind of just do whatever you want. I've written over 50 poems on there, and I would say that poetry is quite fun. It's really something that like allows you to at least concisely express like a work of art, through writing. And I've written poetry about like supernatural stuff. I've written some song lyrics. I wrote this one poem that was kind of inspired by Slayer, actually, and I didn't necessarily make it a poem, but it was more song lyrics, and that was pretty fun to do. Poetry is, it really comes from like an interesting part of at least my mind, because I tend to, how do I put it, like with poetry I tend to really reach into a part of myself that I tend to not necessarily ignore, but I just don't pay attention to that often. And it kind of just allows me to uh, really extract to really extract kind of like these sets of subconscious imagery in my mind that kind of go around in circles. And like with poetry, I can you know how do I put it, like I can just construct like stories like fairly concisely with kind of a sing-song pattern that kind of go that kind of play in and out of my head a lot. So that's something that's pretty amusing to do usually. um, what poetry do you guys like to write, if you write any poetry? Like, is your poetry really personal? Like, do you write a lot of poetry that like maybe relates to your past or relates to your fears or something? Or maybe you write poetry that's inspired by, the great poets, or maybe you write poetry just because it's something that kind of lets you to let off steam. It gives you an outlet to kind of express your creativity, um, and kind of de-stress a little bit. Uh, I don't know. There's a lot of things you can do with poetry. It's a pretty flexible medium. Uh, it allows you to, well, let's say it really allows you to express uh, like your deepest desires, really, and put it in a story. Uh, I would say that one of my favorite things about poetry is, like you can kind of convert it into music. Uh, you can take, you know, like, four stanzas and, just turn it into, almost like a, beautiful song. And that's something that can be pretty fun to do. For me, like, one thing about poetry that was quite difficult was getting the rhymes right. Like just kind of getting the flow of the poetry of the poem right was kind of a difficult task, honestly. Like I didn't really know. Uh, I often wouldn't know like what words would fit together in order to create like a proper sing-song pattern. But usually I'd be able to figure it out, and I could, construct fairly creative ways of, uh, you know, uh, rhyming and creating like those kind of patterns. Uh, so, uh, I haven't really. One thing that I've noticed about poetry, like my interest in poetry, is that I haven't really read that much poetry. I've written a few poems, but I haven't really gone on a deep dive into poetry, like like consumption on the consumption side. And so maybe like there's a lot of techniques that I don't realize exist. I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't even know that much about like specific poets. Like I mean, I know there's Edgar Allan Poe and some ancient Greek poets and stuff like that, but I don't actually know that much about poets themselves. One thing that's kind of interesting is to do research on the stories behind various poets, and a lot of them have suffered quite significantly. And that's pretty, that's it could be pretty a bit, you know, uh, it can be relatable, but it can be a little, rough to read. How some of the poets have gone through some pretty hellish things, like with mental illness and depression, even physical illness and just isolation and, questioning whether or not their lives have meaning and stuff like that. Um, but I would say that, you know, it's definitely fun to, produce poetry, even though it's a little difficult. And a lot of the times I don't have like too much motivation to do it. Like I really have to force myself to be a little inventive and, write a poem, and just do it. And, not worry too much about what other people think, because that tends to be a little bit of a crippling factor in when it comes to your creativity. But you just got to keep pushing forward and just I don't know, like just keep finding ways to innovate in whatever you're doing. So this has been episode 3, season 1. Thanks for listening.